The great hall of the interstellar auction house was filled with noise, voices from every corner of the galaxy mixing into one endless sound. Merchants in fine clothes whispered to each other, smugglers with scars on their faces shouted loudly, and bounty hunters leaned against the walls, waiting for a chance to grab something valuable. Bright lights shone down on the stage where the ships were being displayed, each one brought out with ceremony, each one shining with power and promise. The auctioneer, a tall man with glowing implants in his eyes, raised his arms again and again, his voice echoing through the hall, calling for bids, pushing the price higher and higher. Every time a new ship appeared, the crowd came alive. Money flashed, promises were made, fortunes changed in seconds. Among the crowd sat a young man named Daniel. He was not rich, he was not powerful, and he was not even sure why he had come here. His clothes were plain, his face still held the softness of youth, and yet his eyes were full of quiet fire. He had always dreamed of owning a spaceship, not a great warship or a mighty cruiser, but something of his own, something that could take him away from the dusty world where he grew up. He knew the prices would be too high. He knew he had no chance, but still, he sat there watching, hoping, waiting. The ships were too expensive, one after another. The merchants raised their hands, the bounty hunters smirked, and Daniel lowered his head, his small amount of credits useless in a sea of endless wealth. Still, he did not leave. Something told him to wait, to hold on, to see what would come next. And then, when the crowd was starting to relax, when people were already drinking and celebrating their new prizes, the auctioneer smiled strangely. "Now," the man said, his voice slow and careful, "we come to our final item." The lights dimmed, and from the sham, Dow's a ship was rolled forward. Unlike the others, this one was not shining, it was not clean, it was not even whole. The hull was scarred, the metal burned, the wings bent, and the engines looked like they had not worked in years. The crowd laughed, some shouted insults, others shook their heads saying it was junk, a waste of space. But Daniel leaned forward, his heart beating faster. There was something strange about this ship, something hidden beneath the dust and damage. The auctioneer did not laugh, he did not joke. He looked at the crowd with his glowing eyes, and for a moment it seemed like he was testing them. "An old cargo ship," he said. "Model unknown, origin unclear, systems half dead, but," and here his voice dropped, "this ship carries a story, and stories are worth more than metal." The crowd booed, some left, some waved their hands, not interested. The price began low, so low that it seemed almost an insult. Nobody raised a hand, nobody wanted it. Daniel felt his chest tighten. The ship looked broken, but he could not stop looking at it. It was like it was waiting, like it was calling only to him. His hand shook as he raised it, almost by accident, almost like a dream. The auctioneer's eyes locked on him, and for a moment Daniel felt like the man knew something, like he had been waiting for Daniel to speak. 100 credits, Daniel said, his voice small. The hall went silent, then the crowd exploded with laughter. Some shouted, "Fool!" Others clapped him on the back as if mocking him, but the auctioneer smiled and nodded. 100 credits, do I hear more? Nobody answered, nobody wanted it. The hammer came down with a heavy sound. "Sold," the auctioneer declared, to the young man in the back. The lights turned toward Daniel and the laughter grew louder. He felt his face grow hot, his heart pound, but he did not lower his eyes. Ow. Deep inside, he felt he had done something important, something bigger than himself. The crowd moved on, drinks were poured, music began, but Daniel stood still, staring at the ship that was now his. It was ugly, broken, unwanted, but in his eyes it was beautiful. It was a chance. It was freedom. As he walked toward it, the auctioneer's voice followed him, soft, almost too soft to hear. "Be careful, boy. Some prizes come with chains." Daniel froze, but when he turned, the auctioneer was already gone. His glowing eyes vanished into the crowd. Alone now, Daniel touched the cold metal of the ship. For a moment he thought he heard something, a whisper, a voice, like a breath in the darkness. He pulled back quickly, his heart racing, looking around to see if anyone else had noticed. But the crowd was gone, the hall was emptying, and he stood there with his new ship, his new mystery, and a sense that his life had just changed forever. The night was silent, but Daniel's heart was not. He sat alone inside the ship, the dim lights flickering weakly, the air filled with the smell of rust and dust. He ran his hand over the old controls, half broken, half dead, and wondered if he had made a mistake. The crowd had laughed, the auctioneer had warned him, and now here he was, sitting inside a dead ship with nothing but shadows for company. Still, something in him refused to regret, something inside whispered that this ship was not like the others. Daniel explored carefully, step by step. The corridors were narrow, the walls scratched, as if someone had clawed at them. Strange marks covered the doors, symbols he could not read, glowing faintly when his fingers brushed them. He shivered but kept moving, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Every corner felt alive, as if eyes were watching him, though he saw nothing. He reached the living quarters and his breath caught. There was food on the table, not old, not spoiled, but fresh. Cups half filled with water stood. Beside plates, blankets lay folded neatly on the bed. Daniel froze, his hand trembling. This ship was supposed to be abandoned, broken, empty, but someone had been here. Maybe someone was still here. His voice broke the silence, small, uncertain. "Hello, is anyone here?" Only the echo answered, but the air seemed heavier, like it was holding its breath. He searched the room again, opening drawers, lifting covers, checking corners. No one, no trace of life, only the strange sense that he was trespassing in someone else's home. That night, Daniel could not sleep. He lay on the narrow bunk, staring at the ceiling, the ship groaning around him. Every time his eyes closed, a whisper came, soft, like a woman's voice, sometimes calling his name, sometimes speaking words he could not understand. He woke sweating, his heart pounding, yet no one was there. He thought it was his imagination. Maybe the ship was haunted. Maybe he was too tired. But the next morning, he found something that made his blood run cold. On the wall beside his bed, words had appeared, drawn in glowing lines. They read only one thing: "Do not leave." Daniel stumbled back, fear gripping him. He touched the words, but they dissolved into the wall, leaving nothing behind. His mind spun. Was this real? Or was the ship playing tricks on him? He tried to convince himself to leave, to walk away, but his feet would not move. Something deeper than fear was holding him, pulling him to stay. He spent the day trying to fix the controls. The screens flickered, broken voices whispered through the speakers. Half of the ship's systems were dead, but some tried to answer him. He typed commands, pressed switches, and in return he heard soft laughter. Not cruel, not mocking, but gentle, almost human. The sound filled him with unease. He called out again, louder this time. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" "No, answer came, but the lights above him glowed brighter, as if the ship was alive and listening. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. Later, while searching the engine room, Daniel found a locked door. The metal was different, smoother, stronger, covered in the same glowing symbols. He tried every tool, every button, but nothing opened it. The door pulsed faintly, almost like it had a heartbeat. He pressed his ear against it and heard something inside. A soft sound like breathing. Fear and curiosity battled inside him. He wanted to run, but he wanted even more to know the truth. Why had the auctioneer warned him? Why had the ship felt alive? Why did he hear voices? That locked door was the answer. He knew it. But the answer was not ready to reveal itself. For now, the mystery only deepened. As night returned, Daniel sat in the captain's chair, staring at the dark glass window. Stars stretched endless before him, cold and silent. The whisper came again, closer, clearer, a woman's voice. "You found me," it said, soft and almost tender. Daniel's chest tightened, his mouth dry. He looked around, but no one was there. Then, from the shadows of the hallway, he saw movement, a figure, tall, graceful, stepping slowly into the light. Her skin shimmered faintly, not like human skin. Her eyes glowed like distant moons. She did not speak, but her presence filled the room with warmth and danger at the same time. Daniel could not move, could not breathe. He only stared. The ship creaked, the lights dimmed, and the door behind her closed with a soft hiss. Daniel realized the truth. He had not bought an empty ship. He had not bought metal and wires. He had bought something else, something alive, something that carried secrets. And now, he was no longer the owner of a machine, but the keeper of a hidden life. The night stretched on, and Daniel knew one thing with certainty. The ship was no longer silent, and his life would never be the same. Daniel stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat. The figure before him stepped into the weak light, her form clear now, not a dream, not a shadow, but real. She was unlike any human he had ever seen. Her skin was smooth with a faint silver glow. Her hair floated gently as if touched by invisible wind, and her eyes, large and bright, shone like twin stars. She carried no weapon, she made no threat, but her presence filled the room with power. Daniel felt small, like a child standing before something far greater than himself. For a long moment, silence ruled the room. Her gaze met his, and it was as if she could see through him, into every thought he had ever carried. Daniel wanted to speak, but his voice failed. The words stuck in his chest. Finally, she tilted her head, her lips parting, and the voice he had heard in whispers came alive. "You are the one who claimed the ship," she said, her tone calm, almost gentle, yet heavy with meaning. Daniel swallowed hard. "Who are you?" His voice shaky. The woman stepped closer, her movement graceful, almost floating, her bare feet making no sound on the floor. "I am bound to this vessel," she replied. "I am its guardian, its soul, and its prisoner." The words hit him like a weight, his mind spinning. He had expected a stowaway, a thief, maybe even a ghost. But not this. She was real, alive, and yet more than alive, tied to the very ship itself. He dared to take a step forward, though fear tightened every muscle. "Why are you here? Why is this ship yours?" he asked, his voice steadier this time. She looked at the walls around them, placing her hand gently on the metal, and the ship hummed softly in answer. "This vessel is my body, my shelter, and my prison," she said. "I live within it. As long as it lives, I endure. As long as it is bound, I remain." Her words sent a chill through him, for the ship groaned like a living creature as she spoke. Daniel's mind burned with questions, but one escaped his lips before the others. "Does this mean, when I bought the ship, I bought you too?" Her eyes shifted back to him, sharp and unblinking. "Yes," she answered simply. "By the law of my people, the one who owns the vessel owns me." Daniel's stomach turned. He felt no pride, no victory, only guilt. He had never meant to claim a life. "I don't want to own you," he said quickly, his hands rising as if to free her. She only shook her head, her expression unreadable. "Whether you want it or not does not matter. The bond is sealed. It cannot be broken." Her voice carried no anger, but no hope either, as if she had said those words many times before. Daniel lowered his hands, feeling the weight of something he did not understand, something larger than him. He studied her, trying to see the truth in her. She was not angry, not cruel, but her eyes carried sorrow, deep and endless. Daniel's chest tightened. He had stumbled into something far beyond an auction, far beyond a bargain. This was not about money or ships or dreams of freedom. This was about destiny. He felt it now, a current pulling him into waters he did not know how to swim. The woman turned and began to walk down the hall, her silver glow lighting the way. Without thinking, Daniel followed. They passed through narrow corridors into the deeper parts of the ship, where the air grew warmer, where the walls pulsed faintly with light. Finally, she stopped before the locked door he had tried to open before. She touched the symbols on it, and the door slid open with a hiss. Inside was not an engine room, not storage, but something different. A chamber filled with living light, crystals glowing like hearts, cables pulsing like veins. Daniel gasped. It was as if he had stepped inside a giant living creature. The woman stood in the center of it, and the ship seemed to breathe with her. "This is the core," she said. "It is my heart, and it is your bond." Daniel stepped closer, his eyes wide. You're part of this, aren't you?" She nodded slowly. "I am not separate from the ship. I am the ship, and yet more. My body is flesh, but my essence is bound to this vessel. It was the fate given to me by my people." Her words carried no joy, only a calm acceptance. Daniel shook his head. "That's not fair. You didn't choose this." She gave him a small, sad smile. "Few of us ever choose our fate." The ship's hum deepened, the crystals glowing brighter, as if reacting to her emotions. Daniel felt the bond, not in his mind, not in his body, but in his soul. Something connected him to her now, something invisible, strong and undeniable. She looked at him again, her eyes softer this time. "You may not want this," she said, "but now you are part of it, part of me." Daniel's heart raced. He did not know if he should run or stay or fight. But deep inside, he knew the truth. He was no longer a boy who dreamed of ships, no longer a nameless face in a crowd. He had become something else, chosen by a fate that was not his own. And as he stood there, facing the woman who was both alien and ship, both prisoner and bride, he felt the first spark of a story that was only beginning. The ship groaned, the stars waited, and destiny moved closer. Daniel could not sleep, not after what he had seen. The alien woman's words repeated again and again in his head. "You are bound to me," she had said, and the sound of it carried weight, like chains made of fire. He lay on the small bunk, staring at the ceiling, but every time he closed his eyes, he felt her presence, not outside, not even near the door, but inside the very air, inside the walls, inside him. The ship breathed with her, and because he had claimed it, the ship now breathed with him too, more. Ning came with no light, for space held no sun to wake him, only the soft hum of engines that should not have been working. Daniel walked to the control deck, and there she was, already waiting, standing tall, her silver glow dim yet steady. She looked at him with calm eyes, not cruel, not kind, only certain. "You must understand what this bond means," she said, her voice as steady as the hum of the ship. "By law of my people, when you purchased this vessel, you purchased me as well. My duty is to serve the master of the ship, whether I wish it or not." Daniel's hands curled into fists, anger rising, not at her, but at the unfairness of it. "I don't want you to serve me. I didn't come here to own anyone. I just wanted a ship, something small, something I could call mine. Her gaze softened, but her voice did not change. It no longer matters what you wanted. The bond is sealed, and I cannot resist it. Your will is my command. Daniel shook his head, his chest tight. No, that's wrong. I don't want control. I want choice. I want freedom. For both of us. The woman lowered her eyes for the first time, and a shadow of sadness passed across her face. You are the first to ever say that, she whispered. Others who sought me only wanted power, only wanted to use what I am, to command, to conquer. But you are different. Daniel swallowed, his anger softening into confusion. If I'm different, if I don't want this bond, can it be broken? Her reply was a slow shake of her head, her silver hair drifting like water. No, not by you, not by me, not by anyone. It is older than both of us, older than your world and mine. It is a law written into blood. Daniel felt trapped, yet drawn closer at the same time. He paced the floor, the metal echoing his frustration. Finally, he turned back to her. Then what happens now? What does this bond mean for us? Her eyes met his again, steady, unflinching. It means wherever you go, I go. Whatever danger comes for me, comes for you too. You have tied your fate to mine, human. Those words struck deep. Fate, the very thing Daniel had always wanted to escape. He had dreamed of freedom, of choosing his own path, and now he had stumbled into something that bound him tighter than ever before. But even as the weight pressed down on him, he noticed the way her voice trembled at the word fate. She was not proud of it. She was not free either. She too was trapped in this unwanted bond, and in that moment, Daniel understood. He was not the only prisoner here. He spoke quietly, his voice softer now. Then maybe, if I cannot free you, I can at least walk beside you, not as a master, not as an owner, but as a partner. For the first time, her eyes widened, a flicker of surprise passing through her calm face. Partner, she repeated, as if the word itself was strange, almost foreign. Daniel nodded. Yes, if we are tied together, then let's not be enemies. Let's not be master and servant. Let's be something else. Silence stretched between them, heavy but not cold. Finally, she gave a faint smile, so small it could almost be missed. Perhaps, she said, perhaps there is more to you than I thought. The ship around them seemed to hum louder, as if reacting to her words. Daniel felt the bond again, not as chains, but as a thread, thin yet strong, connecting them. But peace did not last long. The lights flickered, the ship groaned, and alarms rang out from the broken screens. Daniel jumped. What's happening? Her face hardened, her glow brighter now. They have found us, she said, her voice sharp with sudden urgency. Who? Daniel asked, though the answer was already forming in his mind. The hunters, she said, her tone bitter. The ones who have chased me across stars, the ones who will never stop. They know what I am, and they will not let me go. Daniel's heart pounded, and now they'll come after me too. She looked at his. No softness left, only truth. Yes, human, you wished for freedom, but what you bought at the auction was war, and now the galaxy will remind you of that. Outside the window, shadows appeared, dark ships gliding into view, weapons glowing. The hum of the alien vessel grew louder, alive, ready to fight. Daniel stood beside her, fear rushing through him, but also something else. Resolve. He had wanted a ship, he had found a bond, and now he had no choice but to face what came next. The unwanted bond was no longer just a burden, it was survival, and survival was something he would fight for. The alarm screamed through the ship, red lights flashing across the control deck. Daniel gripped the chair, his pulse racing. As shadows filled the stars outside, dark ships glided into view, sharp and fast, their weapons glowing like hungry eyes. The alien woman stood beside him, her silver glow brightening, her expression sharp with focus. They are here, she said, her voice steady. The hunters have found us. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. What do they want? Her gaze stayed on the enemy ships, unblinking. They want me. They want the power of this vessel. They want the bond that ties us, she answered. To them, you are nothing but an obstacle. Daniel's chest tightened, fear twisting in his stomach, but he forced himself to ask, and if they take you? Her eyes turned toward him for a brief second, glowing softly. Then you will die with me. The bond will drag you into the same fate. The first blast shook the ship, fire lighting the black sky. Daniel stumbled, gripping the controls. The engines barely work, he cried, but the woman placed her hand on the glowing symbols beside the chair, and the ship roared to life. Metal groaned, lights blazed, and for the first time, Daniel felt the ship move with true power. Not like a broken machine, but like a living beast waking from a long sleep. The hunters fired again, but the vessel twisted sharply, dodging with speed Daniel had not thought possible. He gasped, holding on, as the ship spun through the darkness. "You are flying this," he whispered, staring at her. She nodded, her hair drifting like silver flame. "The bond lets me guide the ship, but your will fuels it. Together we move. Together we fight." Daniel's fear shifted into something else, adrenaline. The chase ripped across the stars. The hunters spread out, their sleek ships cutting through the void like knives. Laser fire streaked past, explosions flaring in the distance. Daniel clenched his teeth, every blast making his heart pound. But the alien woman moved with calm grace, her hands glowing against the walls, her voice steady as she spoke. "Trust me," she said. "Do not resist the bond. Let me guide you." Daniel shut his eyes for a second, feeling the strange thread between them. The ship hummed in answer, and when he opened his eyes, the controls seemed clearer, easier, as if they wanted him to touch them. Together, they pulled the vessel into a sharp dive, flames brushing the hull as enemy fire missed by inches. The hunters howled across the comms, their voices filled with rage. Daniel felt sweat on his forehead, fear clawing at him, but also excitement. He had dreamed of flying, of escaping his old life, and now here he was, not just flying, but fighting for survival in the depths of space. He glanced at her, and for the first time saw more than sorrow in her eyes. There was fire, determination, and something like trust. For a brief moment, the bond did not feel like chains, it felt like wings, but the hunters were relentless. They closed in, 3 on one side, 2 on the other, their formation perfect, their weapons charging. Daniel's heart sank. "We can't escape, they'll tear us apart." The woman shook her head, her glow brighter than ever. "Not if we use the ship's true power," she said, her voice low, almost dangerous. "What power?" Daniel demanded, gripping the chair. She looked at him, her eyes fierce. "The core inside this vessel is alive. It can bend space. It can move us where no enemy can follow. But the bond is the key, and you must choose to unlock it." Daniel's breath caught. "Bend space, you mean? Jump, travel without moving." She nodded slowly. "Yes, but it will not obey me alone. It must obey us both, your will and mine together. Otherwise it will destroy us instead of saving us." The hunters fired again. The ship rocked violently, sparks flying from the walls. Daniel coughed, smoke filling the air. "If we don't try, we're dead anyway." She stepped closer, placing her glowing hand on his chest, her voice firm. "Then choose, human. Choose to trust me. Choose to trust the bond." His heart pounded, fear and doubt twisting inside him. But deep down, something stronger rose. A stubborn fire that had carried him through every loss, every dream, every desperate choice. Daniel gritted his teeth, placing his hand over hers. "All right," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "I trust you. Let's do it." The ship responded instantly, the core deep inside glowing with blinding light, the walls trembling as if alive. The hunters fired, their weapons blazing, but the blasts never struck. The vessel tore through the void, the stars bending, the darkness folding, reality itself warping around them. For a moment, Daniel felt weightless, endless, lost in a sea of light and shadow. Voices whispered through his mind, old, powerful, not human, not hers, but something deeper, the ship's own voice. It spoke not in words, but in feelings, in visions of stars being born and dying, of journeys across time itself. And then, in a blink, the light was gone, the silence deep, the hunters vanished. Only Daniel, the alien woman, and the living ship remained, alone in a quiet corner of the galaxy. Daniel gasped for breath, his hands shaking, his body weak but alive. He turned to her, his chest heaving. "We did it." She nodded, though her face showed both relief and caution. "Yes," she said softly, "we escaped. But they will come again. They always come again." Her words carried truth, heavy and unbroken. Daniel leaned back in the chair, his fear fading into exhaustion. For now, they were safe. For now, the chase was over. But deep in his heart, he knew the bond had changed again. No longer chains, no longer wings, but a weapon. A secret that others would kill to claim. And as the stars stretched endlessly before them, Daniel realized one thing. This was only the beginning of the hunt. Silence filled the ship after the jump. The stars outside were calm, distant and cold, as if the chaos of the chase had never happened. Daniel sat slumped in the captain's chair, his hands trembling, his heart still racing from what he had just felt. The alien woman stood by the glowing walls of the vessel, her eyes dim now, her silver light softer, almost tired. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, Only the hum of the ship broke the silence, steady and alive. Finally, Daniel found his voice, weak but determined. "What was that?" he asked. "What did we just do?" Her gaze turned toward him, and for the first time he saw hesitation in her. "That," she said slowly, "was the core's power, the true heart of this vessel. It bends space. It moves us beyond time. It is what the hunters seek. It is why I can never be free." Her words pressed down on him, heavy with truth. Daniel leaned forward, gripping the controls, his voice rough. "You said you are bound to the ship, but this is not just a machine, it's alive." She nodded, her silver hair drifting as if in unseen wind. "Yes, alive, but not in the way you understand. It was created by my people long ago, half flesh, half star, half soul, and I was chosen to merge with it, to become its guardian." Daniel stared at her, his mind struggling to hold the weight of her words. "You're saying you are the ship," he whispered. She stepped closer, her eyes glowing faintly. "Yes, Daniel, I am not only flesh, not only woman. I am the voice of the vessel, the will of its heart. When you look at me, you see its human form. When you hear the hum of the engines, you hear its breath. We are one." Daniel shivered, both afraid and amazed. He had dreamed of owning a ship, and instead he had bonded with something far beyond human hands. His voice shook as he asked the next question. "Why you? Why were you chosen?" Her expression darkened, sorrow flickering in her eyes. "I was born among a people who believed in sacrifice. They chose children, binding them to ships so their souls would never die. We became eternal guardians, servants without choice, chained to vessels that could never end. It was called honor, but to us, it was a cage." Her words cut through Daniel like knives. He looked at her, really looked at her, not as a mysterious alien, not as a bond he had inherited, but as someone who had lived a prison since birth. "You didn't choose this," he whispered. "No," she replied, her voice soft. "I never chose, and now that you hold the bond, you never chose either. That is the curse of this ship. It does not ask, it only takes." Daniel's chest tightened, the anger he had felt before now sharper. He wanted to smash the controls, to break the bond, but deep down he knew it could not be broken. The woman placed her hand on the wall, and the ship pulsed faintly in answer. "You must understand, the hunters will never stop," she said. "For them, I am not a woman. I am not a life. I am power. Whoever holds me holds the strength to cross the galaxy in a breath, to strike and vanish, to rule without limit." Her voice grew harder, sharper. "That is why you must decide what you will be, Daniel. Master or partner, tyrant or ally. The bond does not care, but I do." Though Daniel felt her eyes on him, sharp as fire, he looked back, fear twisting inside him, but also something else, resolve. "I don't want power," he said. "I don't want to rule. I only wanted freedom, and if this bond traps us both, then maybe the only way to carry it is together, not as master and servant, but as equals." For the first time her breath caught, her eyes widening as if she had not expected such words. She gave him a faint, almost fragile smile, the first true smile he had seen from her. The ship seemed to respond, its hum growing softer, more peaceful. The walls pulsed gently, as if agreeing with his words. Daniel felt the bond again, but this time it was not heavy, not chains, but something warmer. He felt her presence in his mind, not pushing, not controlling, but standing beside him, and in that moment, the unwanted bond began to change, but the peace did not last. A low signal cut through the silence, the ship flashing warnings across the dim screens. Daniel frowned. "What is it now?" Her expression grew dark, her silver glow sharp again. "They are tracking us, even across space folds. They have learned to follow. They will not stop." Daniel slammed his hand on the chair, frustration rising. "Then what's the point? How do we fight them?" Her voice was calm, steady, almost like stone. "By using the truth they do not understand, Daniel. They see me as power, but I am not only that. I am choice, and now you hold that choice too." Her words lit something inside him, a spark of defiance. He stood tall, his fear fading into determination. "Then let's show them," he said, his voice firm. "Let's show them I didn't buy a weapon. I didn't buy a slave. I found a partner, and together, we will not run, we will fight." The woman's eyes glowed brighter, pride flickering in them for the first time. The ship pulsed, alive, ready, the bond between them stronger than ever before, and in the endless sea of stars, Daniel knew the revelation was not only about her, but about himself. He was no longer just a boy chasing dreams. He was part of something greater, something alive. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window, cold and silent, but Daniel felt the storm of fate closing in. The alien woman stood beside him, her silver glow calm yet fierce, the hum of the living ship echoing like a heartbeat through the metal walls. They had escaped, they had survived the hunters, but they both knew it was not over. The bond had made them one, and now the galaxy itself seemed determined to test what that bond truly meant. The warning lights flashed again, sharp and red. Enemy ships appeared in the distance, dozens of them, forming a wall of steel and fire across the void. Daniel's hands gripped the chair, his chest tightening. "There are too many," he whispered. The woman placed her hand gently on the glowing symbols, her eyes never leaving the enemy. "Yes," she said. "This is the end of the chase. They have brought all their strength, and now the bond will be tested." Daniel felt the weight of her words. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice rough. She looked at him, her eyes glowing like twin stars. "The ship's core holds more than travel, more than escape. It holds destruction too. If we release its full power, it will destroy every enemy before us, but it will also destroy me and you with me." Daniel's stomach turned, his breath catching. "That's not a choice then. That's death." Her voice softened, though her eyes stayed steady. "There is another path. We can run, bend space again, flee into another corner of the stars, but they will follow. They will never stop. Your life will never be your own again." Daniel stared at the screen, watching the hunters move closer, weapons glowing. One path meant destruction, the other meant endless running. Neither felt like freedom, neither felt like hope. He closed his eyes, his mind spinning. He thought of his home, the dusty world he had left behind, the small life he had wanted to escape. He thought of this woman, bound to a ship she had never chosen, her life stolen, her freedom denied. He thought of the bond, unwanted at first, heavy as chains, but now something more, something alive, something worth protecting. And then slowly, his fear gave way to resolve. He opened his eyes, looking at her. "There has to be another choice," he said firmly. Her head tilted, her silver glow flickering. "Another choice," she repeated softly. Daniel nodded, his voice steady now. "Yes, not death, not running, but fighting smart, fighting together, not as master and servant, but as partners." For the first time, her lips curved into a true smile, bright and alive. The hunters closed in, their voices cutting through the comms. "Give us the vessel," they demanded. "Give us the Guardian, or be destroyed." Daniel leaned forward, his voice strong. "No, you'll have neither, not while we stand together." The woman's glow spread brighter, the ship responding, the hum turning into a roar. The bond between them flared, no longer chains, no longer burden, but a weapon of unity. The battle began, fire streaking across the stars. The hunters unleashed their power, but the living ship moved like lightning, twisting, dodging, striking back. Daniel felt the controls alive beneath his hands, every movement guided by every thought echoed by the ship. They fought not as two, but as one, ship, guardian, and human bound together. Explosions tore the void, enemy ships bursting into fire. But more kept coming. The woman's voice rang out steady and strong. "Do you trust me, Daniel?" His eyes burned with determination. "With everything I am," he said. She reached for his hand, their fingers locking, and the ship screamed to life, the core blazing brighter than ever before. Together they bent space again, but this time not to flee, this time to strike. The vessel vanished from one point and reappeared behind the hunters. Its weapons roared, tearing through their formation, scattering them like broken glass. The hunters shouted in confusion, their perfect wall crumbling. Daniel laughed, wild and breathless. "We can win!" The woman's eyes glowed fiercely. "Yes, because we chose to fight together." The battle stretched long, but at last the void grew quiet. Wreckage drifted in silence, flames fading into the endless dark. The hunters were gone, for now, beaten by the bond they had mocked. Daniel slumped back in the chair, exhausted, sweat on his brow, but alive. The woman stood tall, her glow calm again, her eyes soft as she looked at him. "You had a choice," she said quietly, "and you chose not power, not death, but trust." Daniel met her gaze, tired but unbroken, because trust is stronger than fear. For a moment, no words passed, only the hum of the ship and the quiet bond between them. They were no longer strangers, no longer master and servant, but something else entirely, something new, something alive, something that the galaxy would never understand. As the stars stretched endless before them, Daniel felt a truth settle in his heart. He had come to the auction for a ship, nothing more. But he had walked away with a bond, with a partner, with a destiny. The galaxy might call her his alien bride, but Daniel knew better. She was not his prize, not his possession, but his equal, his path, and his future. The ship hummed gently, alive with their untold. Idy. The woman stood beside him, silver light glowing softly. The chase was over, but the journey was only beginning. And together, bound by choice, bound by trust, they turned their eyes to the stars, ready for whatever came next.